Am I audible? Okay, so hey guys, welcome you all back to the another amazing session by DSC SIT. So this is an Android Study Jam second session. So as you the first session was done earlier. So in this session we will be covering some few units by in Android Study Jam to guide you all on how to do it. So let's start. Okay, so first I will actually tell you about what has happened in the previous session, and if you have not attended or you forgot to attend, so don't worry, I'll summarize a bit. So first, if you open the Android Study Jam page, you will see that there are two tracks given. One are the new to programming, other one is the prior programming experience. So new to programming, I hope you can understand that these are completely for those people who have no coding experience, they have not done any programming language in the past. So if you're complete or new to the programming world, so you can actually do this course. Second, there's a prior to programming experience. So suppose you have done programming earlier also, but yeah, the object-oriented programs like C++, Java, or the most important one, Kotlin, then it's really good. Then you can go for the prior programming experience. So in today's session, what are we going to do? We are actually going to do a course on the start new to programming. New to programming has three units: Unit 1, Unit 2, and Unit 3. In the previous session, the previous speaker has already covered Unit 1 and Unit 2. So I won't go into detail. I will just simply go on explaining what was done. So in the first unit, you can see there are 4 badges. Actually, once you complete any one track, that is any one pathway, you will get each badge. So here also you can see there are 4 tracks, 4 pathways. One is the Android Basics. There's an introduction to Kotlin. I won't go into detail. So here you actually learn Kotlin programming a little, like you will be taught some basics and some fundamentals. Second one was how to create your first Android app. You actually learned how to create a first Android app using the Android Studio. Yeah.
There is noise in the background.
In the background. I don't think so. There's nothing there. What type of noise?
Okay, let's continue. It's good, I think. Right now.
Okay. So there we go. Okay. So the second one is that you created your first Android app. Here you are taught on how to install the Android Studio. You also did your first Android app using the Android Studio in this introductory pathway. Third one was you build a basic layout. In this, you focused on creating a basic layout by creating a simple birthday card app by adding some really useful text and images. The fourth one was you learned on how to create a dice roller app where you learned how to use classes, objects, and conditionals to create an interactive app by using buttons. So that was all for the unit 1. So third unit, so now the unit 2. So unit 2, as you can see, there are 2 badges. So unit 2 only has 2 pathways. Unit 1, you can see it's written, it's get user input in an app. So unit 1, you have learned how to create a tip calculator by building the layout first, then you implemented the logic to calculate the tip from the user input. Then you will do a final polishing by following the material design guidelines and the best practices of the UI development. The second unit we see is a display a scrollable list. In the second pathway, you created an affirmations app that displays a scrollable list of inspiring text and images. Using the Recycler View widget present in your Android Studio, along the way, you will also learn about using this in a Kotlin to store a collection of data. So in today's session, so this is all about what was done in the previous session. So in the today's session, I'm going to teach you about how you can do the navigation part of the unit 3. So first, you may not be confused that what does navigation exactly mean. So I actually have opened already your app in my PC, that is the Spotify app, to show you. So as you can see that, okay, let it be. Okay, that in this Spotify app, there's this folder named Browse. I've opened it already and I've seen some music. So now I wish to open the Bollywood app. So I again and go to another page where I find another pair of lists. So here also I click some music and all. So as you can see, there are two arrows. I go back, I go to the previous page, I go front, I go to another page. So this is what we are going to learn in this section, that how to navigate between different pages, how to go forward or backward. So let's start. So here you can see there are 4 pathways. So let's start with the first one. So in this you can see there are 4 tags. The first one is just an optional video where one of the Google developers will enlighten you with what you have done all this while and what you're actually going to learn this entire pathway. So let's skip the video and go to the second one. The second tag is about one of the collections in Kotlin. Okay, so before you begin, let me tell you what you are going to do. In this pathway, I'm going to simply teach you the basics. So this is the first track you can see. So in this first track is very easy. It's completely about to write some coding in Kotlin only. So for this, you just need a basic understanding that you have learned earlier in Unit 1 and Unit 2 about the classes, objects, how to declare a variable, for loop. And the second one is that you need to open the Kotlin background, Kotlin playground in your web browser. Next, what you are going to learn? You are going to learn some basic collections of sets and maps. You are going to learn what are lambdas, and you are also going to learn what are some higher order functions. And what you need, as I said earlier, you just need a Kotlin playground. You can see that. Okay. So first, let's learn what are collections. So if you're actually related with your daily life, so collections are nothing. They are just a list of words or some set of employee records. Like here is the example given. Or you can say I have some collection of books. So collections are something that you collect few things and keep it within yourself. So here the collections is not necessary to be of the same category. The collections can be so the collections, under the collections there can be of various types. There can be text, there can be images, or many things. So first, let's do one thing. Let's first start by creating a list. So let me just tell you first thing that in the collections there are actually 3 types: list, maps, and list, maps, and sets. So first thing that we learn is how to create a list. So it's very simple. So in list, the simple syntax is to write in this form that first you have to declare a variable named numbers and write list of then the number like 0, 3, 8, 4, 0, 5, 5, 8, 9, 2, whatever you want. Then you can simply print ln list this numbers. So let's do one thing. So first let's type this thing in the Kotlin program. Now let's run this. So this is nothing but this shows you that this is a list that we have declared, and this list has been the output. So this is nothing, just a normal list. Like you can say this list is exactly like the collections only. You are collecting some numbers. So now not necessarily it has to be numbers. It can be strings also. So now one thing I want to mention that in collections you can manipulate them. So how you manipulate them? You have several types of inbuilt functions like sorted. So if you use So let us do one thing. Let's do this. So first is, as you can see here, that we have simply sorted it. It's now right now in the descending order. So how you have done this? You have simply used a sorting function. You have like dot sorted this basis. So that is it. That was all about list. There's nothing much to know. Now comes to sets. So sets are also a type of the collections only. They're exactly like list, but as I think we have done in maths also, sets can have no repetitions. As you saw earlier that in list, like, there were several repetitions like 0, 3, then again another 0, there were 2, 5, there were 2, 8. But in sets you cannot do such. In sets it is necessary to have no repetition. So sets is all about that. So now sets again have two types. One are the immutables and one are the mutables. Now if you go to use a normal set cannot is only read only. You cannot do any manipulation or you cannot do any alteration to it. But once you declare it in this way, val set2 is equal to mutable set of this the numbers, you can actually alter it. So set2, but the set one of mutable set or immutable sets actually the same. Just the immutable sets you cannot alter, and the mutable sets you can easily alter. Once done, so these are all about these things, and this one such function known as contains. So contains is nothing. So suppose you have been given a list, or I should rather now mention the word set. You have a set. Now you want to know that whether I have this thing in my set or not. So suppose that the previous numbers were given like 0, 8, 4, 0, 5, 5, 8, 9, 2, whether I have the number 9 or not. So I can check it using this contains function. So it will give you the values. If it's false, of course, it will print either true or false. That's it. So this is the final summarization of what we learned in this one. So what we learned that there are three types. The collections are list, set, and list, sets and maps. And lists and sets, lists have numbers can sort. You can show that whatever the numbers contain. And there were two types of sets, mutable and immutable. The immutables are the ones you cannot, it are only read only, you cannot alter or manipulate it. And mutable sets are the ones which you can alter. So now let's come to the third point, that are the maps. So what are exactly maps? So maps are basically maps, or should I can also consider it as dictionaries. So map is actually a set of key value pairs. Like it always stays in the pairs. It's like suppose, so these are the keys like flowers, animals, and trees. So suppose there is the one key I've taken as flowers. Like suppose I want to create a list of books, cities, and schools. So under the schools, I want to create a list that these are the number of my schools. Under the schools, and there's a and under the books, I want to create that these are the number of books I have. Now, flowers, animals, and trees. Now these all together also comprises of a collection, but we use mapping here. What is the way of writing? You will declare a variable people ages, write mutable map. So as I've mentioned earlier, that you cannot only use a set or any immutable set, because that are not alterable. So what we do in order to do mapping, we apply the word mutable map of string comma int. So what is the string? String is basically to declare what is the type of the key you are using, whether it is a string, is it an int, or whatever is it, and the pairs, that the key value, the whatever values you are the key is actually pointing towards. So the value is what is the value type. So as you can see, it's an int. So I've mentioned that Fred to 30 and to 23, and many more things can be. Then I printed it to people ages. So that is mapping. Mapping is nothing but you can actually give in pairs, and yeah, not necessary that it has to be 30 and 23. You can actually map from keys, like keys can also point to another list as well. So not necessarily it has to be only one single 30 or 20 or anything. Next, we see that you can also, suppose you've already declared a list like that, but you want to add more in the future. So what you can do, you can use these two syntaxes, like people ages, like the map name, the people ages. Then use the put function, put like first the key name, comma the value name that you want to input. So now there are two ways to do this. So this is one way and this is the other. So this is the final layout for the entire map thing. Okay. So value, this is the variable how you declare people ages. I've just used a beautiful map of the type of key I want to use the string and the value is that I want to use the int. This is the already list that I created earlier, Fred 230 and 223. Now these two are the extras that I want to add. So one was the Barbara, another one was the Joe. So these two are nothing but just give the same output, but it's just that there are two different ways of writing a syntax. So it completely depends on you, whichever way you want. Now see, when you run this code, this is your total output.
Srishti,
Yeah.
can you use your earphone or headphone?
I'm actually using earphone.
Okay, is there any machine running on the background?
Actually, from laptop, I use it from the laptop.
There is little noise in the background, I guess. Just do one thing. Reconnect once.
Okay. Do you face the problem again?
Yeah, better.
Okay. Okay. So we were in collections actually. So as you have seen that after running the following program, you see that we get Fred and Barbara and Joe. So after that, after this thing, you can also see that it's actually the same thing. So there's nothing much more to know. So this was all about mapping and how you print a map. So now how you are actually working with collections. So now under the collections, there are many more functions that can be used, like here a for each, to set, and many more. So before that, I would like to mention one thing that actually few moments ago we converted. We didn't created a set. We actually converted a list to a set using the toSet function. So that was it. So now we are going to use one more such function which is known as for each. So now, as we have done earlier in mapping, we actually mentioned what Fred is 31 and 223 or like that. But suppose you don't want it in that way, but you rather want in a very precise manner. Suppose you want to show that it is actually the age of the people. So you want to mention as and Fred is, or suppose you want to give any text that Fred is going to be this age and is going to be this age. So for each is used to give a suitable text for all of them. So what is the syntax that we use? People ages dot for each print. This is the code that you do. So what is, now you might question what is it? So it is actually kind of a special identifier. So it dot key and it dot value actually refers that which one is the key and which one is the value. But for if you want to refer to that, then you have to use the special identifier it. So it dot key and it dot value. So that was all about for each. Like it's basically nothing. Suppose you're writing a math program. So for that you want, of course, so you may want that I want to write in this spread is going to be 23 or Barbara is going to be 24. So in that way you can use the for each in order to write that. Next, now we again come to map, but this time this map that we do is actually a function. This is not, don't confuse it with the previous mapping that we did earlier in the collections. Please, I repeat that once again. This is a separate map, so this is just nothing, just a map function. This is nothing, it just applies a transformation to the each item in the collection. So in your program, as you see that you have replaced the for each in this way. Suppose print ln peopleages dot map. This is the map function. What is print ln? It is used for printing. Peopleages was actually the variable declared earlier. Now I use this function map, inside which I actually use the for each statement that we used earlier, so that you can write who is going to read this, or the inside text, the text in between. Then you have got all the items. Now how you want to connect those items? You use this function, join to string, comma. So it can be a comma, asterisk, or whatever you wish. So once you write this program in the same one, you see this is your following result. You see all the items here given have to be connected with a comma. That's it. And what is it? About this, and this is nothing but that is explaining that suppose we know earlier that we have done a mapping. So thread comma 31, the key and the pair, the key and the value, and this is one pair. So what we did, we used the map. And we did this spread is 31. And what we did, this is a join to string. We just connected them all. We didn't need to use a separate comma after every each number. Now this is just another function that is called filter. Now suppose you want to filter out your list, like suppose there were, as you remember, like there were 4 names, right? So now in those 4 names you want that I want only 2 names whose letters are less than 4. So we do the same. So it's nothing, it just filter out. So not necessarily it has to be with the strings. You can also do it with the values. So suppose instead of writing h.key.length, you can also write h.value, which is maybe more than 20. So you may even filter out using the age also. So filter is nothing, you can filter out your choice that what you want to do, like to show your output. So that was it. Now comes a very important part, that is actually what you are going to use, that is the lambdas and the higher order functions. So lambdas are basically nothing, they are a short way of writing a function. So when we write Kotlin or any other programming language, we write functions. And don't you think that many a times when we write functions, they get too big, too tacky, and it takes a long time to code. So lambdas is here for a rescue. So lambdas are nothing, they are just a way for writing a particular function, but in a very small way. As you can see, there is one example on how to write a lambda. So A is basically a variable. Now A is your variable. Now you may want, so what type of variable it is? It is an int, and this is this arrow mark refers that this is the body of the function. So basically, like whenever we use a function, we take a parameter A, which is of the type int. Now in this only, I want to return a value. So, but yeah, in this lambdas, if your parameter and your return type should be the same, whatever your parameters and the return types are. So A, I've given it as an int. So this int not only refers that my variable is an integer type, it also refers that my return is also should be an integer type. So simply, and this is nothing, just the function body that we write, that A multiplies with 3. So whatever is it. Now, suppose you want, so this is what lambda is all about. Now, when you code, usually the lambdas are used as actually to as a variable only. So now how you actually call lambdas as a variable? So val, your variable name is number. What is its type is int, which is equals to 5. Suppose I don't want to write this 5. Now I want it to be completely depend on what my user gives to me. But don't my user give it to me, you have to change it. So what I do, I declare a variable name triple. which is of the type int, is also mentioned here that it's complete a function times int, which is equals to my small lambda that we did earlier. So this is nothing, it's like you can actually declare a variable using, it's nothing that you use the lambda, which is you can also declare as a variable in order to do the rest of the programming. And this is a very useful part when you will do in Kotlin and in Android development. So this is also one example also that they have done written the same thing and they have simply print ln triple 5. So what happened? The 5, so but actually what happened, this val triple got a new value which is nothing 5 into 3, which is again 15. That's it. So triple is now has been initiated with a value 15. But what did the user give? 5. But we use the lambda, since we use the lambda as a variable, so the number was changed. So that was it. Now this is nothing but just an easier way of writing a lambda. Like if you want to write it as a variable, instead of writing this int a part, you can simply replace it with an it. The identifier, remember I told, like in order to identify that which one is a key or a pair, you can simply replace it with an it. So now we come to another important part, that is the higher order functions. So higher order functions are nothing but actually, the entire time what we were doing, like the filter, the sorting and all this stuff, was actually basically the higher order functions. But higher order functions are nothing but where, this listen to my definition properly. In higher order functions, you take a function as the parameter, you also give a return which is also a function. The return is also a function, a parameter is also a function. Yeah, it's pretty much confusing, but with time it gets easy. So basically lambdas use come here also, like in this higher order function, you basically take lambdas as the parameters, they use it, and after that when they return, that time also they return in the form of a lambda only. So that is it. So higher order functions actually we've already done, so there's nothing much to say about it. And there's this one program given that there we have made a variable, declared a variable in people names. We have created a list, Fred and Barbara, Joe. Now you print people names dot sorted. You have done earlier, right? So sorted. But now you don't want it to be sorted in all the descending order. Now you actually wanted to sort in a different way. So if you would have been normally writing a code, but you have declared another function's name sorted, you have given a list of parameter, you have done a normal return, a big tacky program for it. But no, now the problem is the sort in a single line. As you can see this line carefully, this is print ln. You simply printing it directly. People name is the variable name, sorted with. We declared a function, a sorted with, where you write, and this complete part is actually your lambda. So you declared one str as a parameter inside of it only, which is of string type. You declared another str2, which is again a string type. Then you subtract the lengths of both of them, string1.l length minus string2.length. So you see, in that way you do not need to write any extra. So I think this is a much easier way, like you don't need to write any extra function like separated for it. Using the lambdas you can simply initiate it. So you see, the first one was a normal list that was declared, and Barbara, Fred and Joe, but now using the sorted with, you have simply sorted it out. So that was it, all about it. After this is nothing much, just example of how they are also showing that when you did a calculate button set on calculate listener, so you see this program is in a very big form, but if you use the lambdas or you use a higher order function, you can simply write it in a one line. So you not need to write such tacky big functions at all. So that's it about this. Now, the important part, you make a words list. Suppose I wanted to create an Android app, which is actually a kind of a dictionary. So for now, we won't be making a dictionary, we may make a word game only. So what you do, you click on the button A, then some words appear, then you click on each of the button and the definition appears. So now in this entire process, when you click on the letter A, you want your list of words appear. So you see, there is we declared a variable in words where we wrote where we declared a list of about, accurate. So suppose this is your actually entire dictionary. So dictionary is like huge of 3,000 to 4,000 words. So we can't write those. So what we did, we actually created this very small list of all the words of a dictionary. So now suppose you don't want to, so now suppose you want to print. So now you don't, you want to find a word, all the words named with D. So what we did, we wrote this small program named as, we declared a variable and filtered words, another word words, dot, you use the function filter. Inside that there is another function, it, the identifier, starts with its small function, b, comma, ignore case equals to true. Then you printed the filtered words. So actually what will happen if you write this, you will see that all the words that appear are already starting from B. You have filtered the words. See, balloon, best, brief, like that. Now suppose you want them to be shuffled, so you can also add one extra function known as shuffle, so it completely got shuffled. Now suppose you want to take only 2 words out of it, so you use the function take 2. So out of these 3, any 2 will only appear. Now after that, again you want these 2 appear, but you want them to be sorted. So of course then again you use another sorted function. You got test 3. Then you simply printed the filtered words, and that's it, your code is done. So if you see this properly, if you would have written it in a normal way, that it would have become very big and a tacky program, like using several functions and all. But if you see this is really very small and a very easier way of writing your code and doing your work. So that was it in the first track. So this is nothing, just a summarization. So let me summarize a bit, like what you have learned. You have learned collections. You learned that collections can be mutable, immutable, ordered, unordered. Under the collections, you learned about lists, sets, and maps. Then you learned certain new functions like for each, map, filter, sorted, and many more. Then you learned about lambda and higher order functions. So to be honest, the most important are the lambda and the higher order functions only, because these two will be used the most. Next, okay, so this was all about the collections and Kotlin. So this was what you did all right now, was just you learned the basics of the Kotlin languages that you need for your upcoming navigation part. Next, what you did are the activities and the info. This is little bit and maybe little complicated. So first, let's start with the introduction. So this is basically nothing. This is actually, you can say, the main part of the entire thing, that you will be learning actually how to do the navigation part and how you will going to create a menu. Like as I showed you in the Spotify app, it was going forward, it was going backward. So this is all, but how it was happening, who was passing the direction, and everything you're going to learn in this particular pathway. Also, you're going to learn on how to create a menu. But for this, what you need your Android Studio installed in the uploader. And what you're actually going to build through that, you're going to build throughout a dictionary app, so that we can implement the navigation between the screen using intents and adding an options menu, the starter code. So let me first tell you what we are actually going to make. So as you see, this is actually your app. When you will open your app, this is going to be your first page with words. There are several alphabets given, A, B, C, D and all. Then you click each A or B or anything, each alphabet, you will get the words that start with that particular alphabet. Then if you click on that particular word, you will get it will direct it towards the Google and with the meaning of it. So that is it. Don't worry, you don't need to actually create the entire app. So this is So don't worry, you don't need to create. You will be already given an incomplete version of the project, or you may say a starter project. So at first, how you will actually start is just you will simply click on this starter code URL. Let me open this. So this will actually direct you to your GitHub page, where in this GitHub page you will see there's a button called code. You click in the code button and you will download this zip file. Automatically your zip file will be downloaded. Next, you don't need to do much. So since the zip file has been downloaded, so you see mine also it is already downloaded. Next, what you need to do that you will start your Android Studio. Click on the button Start a new Android Studio project. Then click on the button File, New, and then Import Project. This process takes quite some time. Wait for the Android Studio to open your project. Then click the button Run to make sure that it works as it's expected. Like, it will be completely an incomplete project, but it still should work. Then browse across your files. Now let me give you an overview that what all files you will be actually receiving. So these are the following files you will receive. You will receive a detail activity, letter adapter, main activity, and word adapter. But we won't be working with all of these. We will be working in only these three specific files: the letter adapter, the word adapter, and the main activity. So in letter adapter, basically you are going to handle the button presses. You are going to you're going to basically do the real navigation part. In the word adapter, you will be only be doing the navigation across. Like, since when you click the word, you are taken to another page. You completely go out of your app. You go to a separate platform. So word adapter will help you with that. The main activity is nothing, but we will actually help you out on how you can actually show your options menu, like in a grid or a list form or anywhere. So now let's introduce you what is intents, introduction to intents. So an intent, so as you can see, an intent is nothing. It is an object which represents some action which is to be performed. Now these intents are of several types, but for now we are going to only study of two types. One is implicit, one is explicit. Or in simple words, I can see like the explicit is kind of an extrovert. The explicit does all the work in the front, and whatever you will see, it's like whatever explicit is doing. And implicit is like an introvert. Like implicit doesn't actually do much of a work. Like whatever it does as its own, and you won't be able to see. But to be very honest, the implicit intent is the actual part of the entire app. It does all the make work. That's it. So one easy example is that suppose you are in this developer's page and you automatically given a link and you want to share. So what you see, you get this pop-up option where you have to share or open in another browser. So this is what actually intent does. It gives a direction. And so this is nothing but just giving what is an explicit and an implicit intent and what is common among those. So implicit is nothing, it's just often for presenting activities from another app or system feature. So implicit, as I said, is that it works within the system. It will just show you, it will just present you the activities that is to be done with the other apps or with any separate platform. Explicit is something that generally looks after all the activities within the app, and implicit and explicit have this one common thing, that it actually requests. And yeah, this actually just works out throughout the entire process, but it won't actually work in the actual result. So that's it. So first part that we do is we learn how to actually set up an explicit intent. So it's very easy. First, I think you remember the files that I told earlier. So first, open the file letter adapter KT. You scroll down to the on-bin view holder. Then simply set an on-click listener to a holder.button. So you have to do nothing. Just basically you have to open this file letter adapter.kt. When you open that file, you will see there's a function name is on-bin view holder. There you will write this function holder.button.set on click listener. This will do nothing. This will just set an on click listener option for the holder button. Holder is nothing. Is holder is actually referring to the user who is actually using the button. So basically, it does that. This is actually the button function that you perform. Now let's get a reference to the context. You declare another variable name as context, which is again equal to holder.view.context. So holder is again, you can say, the user. You are viewing the context. So context is basically the whatever is there on that particular Android app page. Now the main part, we actually now create an intent. So since we are dealing with the explicit intent, so we will now learn how to create that only. So your declared intent equals to intent function. So this is not the intent, this one, this is an intent function. So what are the parameters of it? The context, comma, the details activity class.java. So the detail activity is nothing, it's actually the name of the activity. So now you may be confused that what is an activity. In the next pathway you will learn that what is actually an activity. So an actual detail activity object is created behind the scenes. Now, put an extra. So this is basically nothing. You are actually declaring an extra. So I think you not remember that an extra is nothing that, there are some extra pieces of data like a number or a string that we use, but we actually not showing it to the user or not doing it to the front. So that data, what happens, the data is retrieved, it's retrieved back to data. So extras are that only. So that's it. And so this, the holder is basically user, the button and it's using. This is the text, and from that particular text, the user will retrieve the string, that's the particular data, like the string. Now we call the start activity. That means my intent will get started, like a method of passing the context, like the method of actually opening the next, the navigation basically, like of opening the next part. So that is the context of start activity intent. Now we go to the detail activity. So now you have created your first explicit intent. Now you will go to a detail state. Now in the onCreate method of the detail activity, you will call a set content view. So this is basically the syntax you're going to write that variable, you declare a variable letter ID. So basically, each letter in the app like A, B, C, D, they all have the separate IDs. So now you're going to actually call the IDs. So what is it? Intent, question mark extra, question mark get string letter, to string. So now so this is nothing. So as I mentioned that every other letter has its individual ID. So intent is nothing that it will call the property. This is actually the property of the detail activity. So intent, so why this question mark? So sometimes this intent may have the data or may be a null. So suppose it's a null, it won't continue, and suppose it has some data, it will continue. Then it will go to the extras. The extras are actually nothing but the extra variables and the numbers that we have used earlier, whether they are there or not. If they see that it's there, then it will use get string letter. So it will use the get string, and the letter is basically the A, B, C that you are actually going to use. So dot to string to check whether actually that particular letter it exists or not. So once you actually create this, so once the user, I think you've understood that we have actually taking the data from the user, that which type of letter it's taking using the letter ID. So once we get that, you actually navigate to the details screen. This is the final screen you receive, the word screen. So this is nothing. This is actually all about. So nothing else is there. So now it's time for this is the main part. So now we will make an implicit intent. So implicit intent, as I've mentioned, is the final part. So now you have seen how you have navigated from the letter part or from the letter screen to the word screen. So now for the word screen, when you click an individual word, you are directed to a definition page of a Google or any other browser. So now how is actually implicit intent is doing that? So first, we are declaring an object, val, then a variable data equals to data, then search prefix, then this is the place where you actually put the search. So you will actually get your definition. Okay. Then the holder, then you will write this another project. This is the holder, the user, the button, set on click listener. Then you will, then this, if you may recognize, this is nothing but the lambda function that we used. The variable query UR1. So now this is a variable you are declaring, but this has to be a type of a URI. So what is this URI? This URI is nothing but a uniform resource identifier. So this uniform resource identifier is basically a type of a text which actually is a URL. You can also say that it's actually kind of a URL, but we are using this URL as a string. So we will declare it as a URL. Dot TRAC parse, then the inside the detail activities dot search. So this is it, and there's nothing else to say. So the main part is actually done. Okay, so now we have done the real part, the navigation part, like how you navigated from one page to another page, from that page to another page. Now, we are going to set up an menu and the icons. So as you see that these are words that are written in two different manners. So let me give an example actually what we are going to do. As you can see, this is actually my document page. So now these are the 4 items I have. Now I may want them to be showed in extra large icons or maybe a medium icon. So this is the drop-down menu that you see and the way that you show it. So this is actually what we are going to learn in this part. Now, you need to open your drawable, this file. Then you will see that there in this drop-down menu, you will see there are 3 XML files. You don't need to go for the XML files. Select OK. So now, So now in the Android Studio, you will see that there is an option named View. You will go to the Android resource file. Then in the Android resource tab, you will directly go to the menu, and you will find a file name. You will find it with layout menu. So basically, the menu that I showed you earlier, we are going to make a layout of it. So these are basically the XML files. We won't be going into detail about it. So this menu just has one button and it has many properties. Like, so you have to just click one button and you will get a menu. So now these menu, so in the menu, as I've shown you that there was an extra large option, there was a medium option and all that. So now they all have the individual IDs. They all have a title and they all have an icon and show as action. So basically they meant that these names like large icons, small icons or lists, they have the individual IDs. Then you see these small images by themselves, right, in the left side. So these are basically the small images that we are going to give. Next is also that they also have a certain activity. Like suppose I take the list, it comes in this form. So this is actually an activity. So these all they have. And this is not so very difficult to implement it. So this is actually nothing much. You will have to go to the main activity page and you have to do the changes. Okay, now you have come to the main activity page. So I think I can assume that in the unit 2 you must have learned about classes, objects and all. So you may have you may know what does this private mean. So there are actually 3 types: private, public and protected. So what we do, we make a private variable which we give it a name as equally true and we declare this variable name as is linear layout manager. Then if the user toggles the button, then you may if the user toggles the button, he may want sometimes it is grayed or sometimes replaced or something. Like he may just use his mouse, go and up and down. So for that, we choose this. You have to simply write this function. So this is nothing but private, declare a function name, choose layout. What is inside that function? If is layout manager, if it is true, like as we've mentioned, it is true, then recycler view dot layout manager is equal to linear layout manager this. So this is actually nothing, it's like an XML file, so since we're not going to detail. This else or else it will go to the recycler view dot layout manager, which is equal to grid layout manager. This is also another XML file, comma 4. Okay. So this is basically nothing. Then you have to add this one. So this is means private fun set icon, menu item, uh, question mark. So this is nothing. Suppose, so this part does nothing as such. So suppose the user wants the first one. So when the preview function will be run, user may the computer will see, like the app will actually see that the user doesn't want this one. So suppose it comes out to be false, it will automatically go for the next option. So it's nothing. It's like you can see an if else only running several times using these two functions. So override, and this is also the same thing only. These are some other ways of how writing this on-read options menu. They are just showing it. They are just showing that if it is yes, then you can go to step another one. So these, so I've just explained you, and these are only several times written one after the other, and it's done. So this, so just let me tell you what you have actually learned all throughout. You have learned how to the basic navigation part. And we've also learned how to do the implement the menu button. And this is the solution code where you get the repository extension. And that's it. And summarize. So now we see that there is this whole part. This is the stages of an activity life cycle. So this is a very theoretical part only. Let's see this. Okay, so now we come to the this part, the stages of the activity life cycle. So this is a very easy part. This you will learn that how far your how far the data in our app will actually last and how it will get initialized. So this is nothing. This in this part you will, as I mentioned earlier, that you may be confused that what is exactly an activity. So in this part you will learn what is an activity and what is an activity life cycle. You will also learn in order to initialize an activity, you will there are several methods, but the one particular method you will learn is the on create method. What you will learn, how to print the login information. So what you will learn that how to print the login information to the logcats, like basically the login credentials, how far the activity life cycle, the callbacks, and all will last. And maybe sometimes what happens in our apps, there are several bugs. So how you will understand how you can debug all those easily. So what you will all do that you will actually just create a starter app which is called the Desert Picker. So you will just whatever said I said that you will just learn all these things only. So like how to that if you find bugs, how to stop them, and suppose all the data is if all the data is used, like the user's data is used, how you can actually resurrect them. So all that. Let me give you an app overview. As you can see, this is a desert clicker app. So it's nothing. If the user clicks on that particular desert, the user will automatically will purchase the desert, and how many times the user clicks, that number of times the desert will enter. And finally, the total amount of the user will be provided. Now the same process. That now at first you need to at least get the code. This also you don't need to do the entire thing, just the particular steps like how you can debug and all the basics. So you can either click on this desert, click a starter code and open it directly in the Android Studio, or follow the same process of going to the GitHub and click on the code, download the zip file and then open the zip file in the Android Studio. Click on the start a new Android studio project, go to new import project. It will take some time to open, then run. Then it will take some time to open. Once done, you will browse the project files given. Now, it's the theoretical part. As you can see, let me give an example. So as it is shown here also, that what is the butterfly's life cycle? It's an egg, it turns to a caterpillar. After that, it turns to a chrysalis. After that, it turns to a complete butterfly. Then it dies. The same way is for this Android app also. The Android app also follows a similar type of life cycle only. The activity lifestyle is actually made up of different states an activity can go through. The activity is first initialized, then it goes through several states, several forms, then it finally gets destroyed, and finally the memory is again get reclaimed by the system. So the process actually kind of, you can say, continues, like initialized, created, started, resume, then again same thing. So activity lifestyle is nothing but just that only. So this part is completely a theoretical base. So let's do one thing. Let's start about this. So now, how to do this activity lifestyle? We were going to use, as I mentioned earlier, we are going to use the this way of onCreate, this process. So first, declare this function: override fun onCreate save instance state bundle question mark. Okay, so sorry, I just forgot to mention that at first you need to actually open the main activity part, then you have to examine the onCreate function, then write this one. So in this activity lifestyle diagram, if you may have recognized that there is the first initialization we do, that is we use the onCreate. This is the very first step. Then since you have used a callback before, so it's one method every activity must implement. The onCreate method is where you should do any one-time initialization for your activity. For example, on onCreate, you can actually implement the layout, define the click listeners, or set up a view binding. Okay. So actually there's nothing much of coding in here. It's just like a complete lifecycle thing that you do an onCreate, you create, then you do an onStart, you start. Then there are actually many functions that you have to perform. Like onCreate is one function that we created earlier. You do an onStart, then onResume, then onPause, onStop, and onDestroy. That's it. Okay. Now you will create a separate class named log. So what is the log does? The log does actually write messages to the logcat. So log is basically nothing. It will take all the details from the user and keep it along with itself. Then here are the three parts of the command: the priority of the log message, the log tag, and then the actual login message. The priority of the log message, as it's written, that it is a very important message. The log1.d method actually writes to debug the message, and the other method is the log class include log.i. It is the informational messages, and then we have log.e, log.w, log.b. So log.e, w are nothing but the warnings. The e are for actual errors, and b are for the verbose messages. The log tag, which is the first parameter you are going to use in your function in case of the main activity. This tag is nothing but is just a string and this is typically the name of actually the class. Then the actual log message, it's just nothing, it's just a short string which is going to be used when you are going to do an on create call. So it's very much shown with the images only, that first you have to compile and run the Desert Picker app. You don't see any behavior differences in the app when you tap the Desert. In Android Studio, at the bottom of the screen, click on the Logcat tab. So once you open, you will see there is one Logcat tab in it. Once the Logcat tab window, type t/main activity into the search field. So the main part is done. After that, we are going to implement the onStart method, the next step. The onStart method is also nothing. You go back to your main activity.kt, open that, move your cursor to the main activity class, open the code, then override methods, or press Ctrl+O, or a dialog appears with a huge list of all the methods you can actually override in the class. Then simply click on the onStart unit. Then start entering the onStart to search in the right button. Then you will see automatically a new function will appear. Then click on OK. Okay. Now we are going to add one constant. So this is the actually code for adding that. So constant which is also variable tag. Now right inside which is written as main activity. Then inside the onStart, we write this log message, override function of onStart function, which is under which that is written super.onStart log.d tag comma onStart call. So basically it's nothing but it's starting the onStart function and performing the further. Now we are going to do the log statements. This is the override reminder of the lifecycle methods, and also this is, you can say, the main part, like function on resume, even if it's pause, stop, destroy, or reset. And these are the basically the credentials that will be stored within us. And as you can see, already it has been stored in the output. When was it created, when was it start, destroyed, all that. Okay. Okay, now this is the onResume. So onResume is actually the same as the onStart only. So there's nothing actually much to resume. So it's basically the start again. Now let's explore the life cycles. Use some cases. Use case 1, opening and closing the activity. You have to simply compile and run the Desert Picker app, and if it is not already working, you have seen in on create, on start, and on resume callbacks are called when the activity starts for the first time. Tap the cupcake a few times, then tap the back button. You will see that how many times, then you will see that its data has been stored. So basically this part you see is nothing but they tell that whatever activity you use, that how it has been stored within us. Within the app. Then this is nothing, the use case 2, the navigation from and back. So since we've already done the navigation, so this is nothing, it shows that how many times the user has gone back, how many times the user has gone front. So these are all the details that the app will keep itself. Then partially hide the activity. Then when the app goes into the background, the focus is lost. So suppose you close the app and now you have opened something else. For partially the activity is actually hidden and it doesn't get recorded. Suppose you want to message something, so when you will see that it is half shaded, so you actually message or copy the clipboard or something like that. That time actually your activity is not getting recorded. Then you see some configuration changes. Suppose the data is lost on device rotation. So many times you must have actually observed that whenever you are using a phone, so sometimes you're playing a game. So whenever you have rotated your device, you automatically see that you have been signed out and all your entire data has been lost. Like whatever you did or whatever, maybe a shopping website or anything. So it's nothing like that. So, but don't worry. Actually, we've always the Android developers who actually created that app is already having whatever the data was there. So now you're going to learn on how to actually save that data and how you're actually going to retrieve it back. So it's nothing. You have to declare a function name as onSaveInstance state. Open this in the main activity. Now go override function onSaveInstance state outstate this particular function. Then compile it, run the app, and click on the home button. You will automatically see compile run the button. Click on the home button to put it in the background. Notice that the on save instant button on black occurs just after the on pause and on stop. So suppose whenever you're doing the app and suppose it is paused or stopped for some of the reason, maybe your phone got hanged or something for the reason, automatically the on save instant state activates and starts saving the data with all that happened. So this is all about onSave, and this is nothing. And again, you're actually doing the same thing. You're again doing an onCreate in order to restore the bundle data. Like when you close the app, you restart your app, you will see that again all your data is back. So again, the onCreate function is actually running. So that is it. So nothing much to say. So that's it with the stages of the activity lifestyle. So what did we learn? We actually learned how does the activity works in an Android app, like how far, like what are happening, what all states it takes place, or what all data the user is giving. Then we learned some certain functions called onCreate, onStart, onPause. So these are nothing. That these are actually records the users all the activity that is actually taking place within the app. And then we learn on how what happens suppose the phone got hacked or suppose it got automatically stopped. So actually learn that how you actually preserve the data and how you are logging in, logging out. If there's a that's it. So phew. Now that was a really long thing. So I know this was very long. So now you must be thinking that kitna para hai. So I know that was very long, but don't worry. The following are equally short, so it may get over. So introduction to the navigation component. So see, how to navigate, you have actually learned all the basic parts. But you know, to make it more easy, Android Studio has some certain features in order to make it more faster. So that's why these are really small, so they have hardly 1 or 2 code bars. Okay, so this is so as you can see, the first and the last one are some really small. They're actually introducing a navigation component. So this navigation component known as Android Jetpack. So it actually, you know, that Android, the programming using Kotlin and all the pages that we open, we did. I know it's pretty much like tiring. So they have actually introduced this new navigation component which makes it more easier using their inbuilt libraries and tools. So before you begin, let me tell you. Now suppose you have this place. You have favorites, recents, contacts, and voicemail. When you click on recents, it does nothing. It just swipes it to that place. It doesn't takes you to a separate page. It's just simply swiping recents, contacts, activities, or voicemail. So here we're going to learn about actually something called fragments. Many Android apps that don't need a separate activity for every screen. In fact, many common UI patterns such as tabs exist within a single activity using something called fragments. So fragments are nothing but they are used that you're not actually changing the page of.
So see,
Huh.
actually it's quite strong, I guess. And amount is also less, so we should stop.
I was also thinking the same. Getting stuck.
And I am seeing that तुम्हें खांसी भी हो रहा है. So it was quite long. Okay, so any doubt till here, students? Hello.
If you guys have doubts, then you can also write it in
Yeah,
the chat box.
and if you miss anything, Sushri can repeat. Okay, I guess there's no doubt. So we will have session tomorrow also, and Keshav will be taking that. So be present on that session. I guess it's training on Siriguri, so the amount is quite less, and that's why we are quitting right now.
So thank you guys. And if you have any doubts, you can. I'm also there in the Android study jam group, so you can place your doubts there.
Yeah. And if you have doubt regarding that Srishti has covered, you can ask right now. She will repeat that section.
I guess
Please
there are
respond,
no
guys.
doubts.
मैसेज भी कर दो कम से कम.
हाँ
अगर कोई डाउट नहीं.
एक्चुअली अगर कोई डाउट है मैं उनका प्रॉब्लम नहीं है देखो अब तो स्टॉप करने जा रहे तो मैं रिपीट कर दूंगी दोबारा से.
Okay, I don't think.
Okay, no doubts.
वाई पीयूष रंजन अभी क्यों ज्वाइन किया तुमने? सेशन तो 6:30 5:30 से था.
It's okay. Like next day when you continue तो समझ में आ जाएगा कि कोई ना कोई तो समराइज करा देगा तो सबको थोड़ा सा.
हाँ, समराइज हो जाएगा और जो भी डाउट होगा ASJ में पूछ सकते हो. Okay, thank you so much guys for
Thank
connecting.
you.
And और कल भी सेशन है, केशव सेशन लेगा, सो वहाँ पे भी रहना और होप की बारिश करना हो तो मोर स्टूडेंट को कैन जॉइन द सेशन. Okay,
Okay,
thank
so
you.
thank you everyone.